Hey everyone, I'm Madan Mohan. Welcome back to my JavaScript video course. Today I'm going to talk about the most important concept in JavaScript, which is closures. Right. First, let me tell you the definition of a closure. A closure is nothing but a function with its lexical scope. So, to understand the closure, first you need to know what is meant by lexical scope. For that, let me write a small example. Function A, inside which I want to declare a variable, example sum. Inside function A, I'm going to create one more function, let's say B. Okay, I have created a function, the name of A, and inside which I have declared a variable called sum. Now after that I have created one more function B. Now inside function B, I'm just trying to access a variable sum. So if you observe here, the variable sum which I am trying to access here inside B is not available inside function B, but it is there in the function A. So when I try to access the variable sum which is not available inside function B, what the output gonna be? Let's check. Function. Okay, now here there is a console. Let me refresh. You can see here the output is 10. That means it has access to the variable sum even though it is not available inside function B. When console log statement has been executed, first it will look for this variable sum inside the scope of this function B. But if you observe here, there is no variable called sum inside function B. So what it actually do is it will try to look for the same variable sum inside the scope of this parent. A is a parent to the function B. So whenever it doesn't find the sum variable inside this function, it will look for the same variable inside its parent scope, that is A scope of A is this, right? So it will look for the variable sum. So just because the sum is available inside its parent scope, it is going to be printed. That's how it has happened. And so this 10 has been printed. Now for example, what if I declare the same variable here? Now if you see, there is no sum available inside A. Now in this case, what will be the output? Let's see. You can see here. Still, the sum has a access. In this case, what happens is first it will look for sum inside B, and after that it will go into the parent scope, and after that it will go into the global scope. It will check inside the global scope. Now the sum is there in the global scope. That is the reason why it is going to be printed. Now this complete process of looking for a variable inside its parent scope, if it doesn't exist in its block scope, is nothing but scope chain in JavaScript. This is how the execution happens in JavaScript. What if I remove this thing? So in this case, what happens? It will try to look for the same variable sum inside B, and after that inside the scope of A, and after that it will look for sum inside the global scope. But if you see, there is no variable called sum. In this case, it will give us a reference error. You can see sum is not defined. Okay, now let me add this here. Now let's say I just wanted to return this function here. What happens when I return this function B? So the complete function is going to be returned here. Let's say for example, I just wanted to show you what happens when we return a function. You can see here, when we try to return this particular function B, the complete function has been displayed. Now what happens when I try to call this function E outside the scope of function A? Observe here clearly, I'm just trying to access a variable called sum outside the scope of function A. Whenever we executed this line, So the function a is going to be out of the execution stack. This will be completed and this will go out of the execution stack at line number 9. When I try to access this particular variable sum here at line number 11, what it is going to display? Still, there is access to the variable sum. This is simply nothing but closure. Let me show you here. You can see here A is a closure. A has access to its global scope, and also inside A we have one more function called B. So it has its access to its global scope and its local scope. So here A is nothing but a closure. See, whenever we are trying to return this function doesn't simply return this function b. It even remembers the variable sum which is there in its parent scope. So that is the reason why even we are calling this at line number 11, it is giving us the output. This is simply nothing but closure, and this is how closures work in JavaScript.